When I first saw this ad, I thought it was stupid. It says, guess what is the biggest preventable cause of cancer after smoking? But you don't need to guess, because it takes just 1 second to figure out. They mean obesity. So why create this ad? Why not go with something more obvious? In fact, why bother with it at all? These things cost £2,000 a week. To find out, I spoke to an advertising expert. Richard Shotton is a behavioural scientist and best-selling author. He told me quite firmly the ad wasn't stupid. It was actually pretty smart because it is using a psychological principle known as the generation effect.
The generation effect was first studied in 1978 by Graf and Slameka, two psychologists at the University of Toronto. And in their study, they recruit 24 people, I think they were students, and they split them into two groups. And some see words like rapid, fast, dog, cat, whatever it was. The other group see the same words, but there is a letter missing. So you might see F blank ST or D blank G. And then later on, the two psychologists ask those people to try and remember as many words as they can. And their key finding was that the group that saw the words with the letters missing, they remembered about 15% more than the groups that saw the entire words. The argument from the psychologists was that the words with the blanks in were more memorable because it involved the audience. They had to generate the answer themselves. And that act of effort made the ideas stickier.
Yeah, that's all well and good, but this is a 40-year-old study conducted on just 24 people. The Flat Earth Society has 225,000 followers. 24 people is hardly reliable. But Richard explains that he reran the study, this time with hundreds of people.
So what I did, 2021, 2022 maybe, Mike Trahan and I went out and recruited 415 people, and we essentially reran Graf and Slameka's study. We gave people names of brands, whether it's banks like HSBC or cars like Porsche. Again, some people saw the full word, some people saw the word with a letter missing. And later on, we asked people to recall as much as they could, and recall as many of the brands as they could. And we found that people in the full word list remembered 81% of the brands. People who were in the generating group remembered 92% of the words.
This ad is not quite as stupid as I thought. By hiding certain letters, it becomes more memorable than writing the word out in full. But I still had my doubts. See, adverts can't just be memorable, they have to also capture attention. So does the generation effect, does that capture attention? To find out, I ran a test. See, I run a podcast called Nudge. A while back, I recorded an episode which covered the benefits of sleep. To test the effect, I created this generation effect style post for LinkedIn. Now, by hiding the answer, I hoped to increase my engagement. And it did seem to work. The post got more engagement than my average, but 19 likes, despite being above average for me, is still embarrassingly low. And Richard told me that's because I was applying it too literally.
The generation effect isn't just about removing letters. The underlying principle is you have to give your audience a little bit of work to do. Now, think of the classic Economist ad, I never read The Economist, management trainee age 42. That ad written by David Abbott didn't go out and say, if you don't read The Economist, you'll be a failure. Instead, they set what's essentially a little puzzle for the audience, a simple puzzle for the audience to resolve. And by the act of solving the puzzle, by communicating obliquely, it harnesses the generation effect and it becomes much, much more memorable.
My LinkedIn post was a piss-poor attempt at applying this nudge. To use it properly, I had to engage my fans, just like two researchers did back in 2004. Rohini Alawani from the University of Kansas and Robert Bernkrank from Ohio State University, well, they recruited 135 participants and showed them a series of ads. All the adverts conveyed the same information, but sometimes the message was communicated through a question and other times through a statement. So one ad said, "Did you know that wearing Avanti shoes can reduce your risk of arthritis? ? Whereas the other ad stated, "Wearing Avanti shoes can reduce your risk of arthritis." Afterwards, participants were asked about their attitudes towards the ads on a series of 9-point scales. Turns out those who read the question rated the brand 14% more positively than those who read the statement. When someone engages with an ad, they pay more attention, they value it more.
That's a study from Michael Norton, Dan Ariely. Essentially what they do is get people to take part in experiments. At the end of the experiment, they are shown either a fully assembled IKEA box or just the constituent parts. And the people who are shown the constituent parts have to put that box together, they have to assemble it. And then everyone is asked how much they're prepared to pay to take the IKEA box home. And it's something like the order of 50%, but there's a 50%-ish improvement in valuation of the item if people have had to build it themselves.
It's not just IKEA products too, it works with all sorts of things. Take wine. In 2017, Spence and Wang from the University of Oxford recruited 140 participants and asked them to sample 2 bottles of Malbec. On one occasion, they drank the wine after opening a screw-top bottle. On another, they were treated to a bottle with a cork. Now, both bottles contained the identical wine inside. The only difference was the screw top or the cork top. The researchers predicted that the effort it takes to open a cork top will make the participants value the wine more. Now, even though the participants drank the exact same wine, they rated the quality as 10% higher and the taste as 4% more intense when they had tasted wine from a cork top bottle. Now, those of you still paying attention will be thinking, hold on, everyone knows cork top wine is more expensive. If you know it's more expensive, you'll value that wine more. This is nothing to do with the generation effect. Well, the researchers thought of that because they did a clever follow-up experiment. In their second study, people sampled 2 wines, but this time they didn't do the opening themselves. Instead, they heard someone else do it. Some heard the pop of the cork being removed in another room, others heard the noise of a screw top being removed. In this study, the boost to perceived quality fell to 8% and the boost to perceived flavour fell to 1%. The researchers proved that the boost to rating came from the effort of opening the wine rather than the general associations with cork and quality. Adding a bit of effort to your product boosts the perception of quality. My love for home-ground coffee, self-stirred G&Ts and my mum's spag bowl, well, it's probably less to do with flavour and more to do with this principle. We prefer things when we are involved with creating them. Engaging in the process, it boosts our enjoyment. It explains why cork-top wine is more flavoursome, why ads with questions are more effective, and why this ad, the ad that I thought was stupid, is actually pretty smart. This video is a trimmed version of the Nudge podcast, the UK's most popular marketing podcast. If you liked this show, you will love my podcast. Just search for Nudge wherever you get your podcast.